Chris Mannix, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons on NBC Sports Radio, the 24-hour Sports Talk Network. Download the app, subscribe to the Mannix podcast. Chris Mannix is back. We talk NBA. What's happening, Chris?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
All good, and let's jump right into maybe one of the more intriguing stories in Boston, where the Celtics are down 2-0. They don't play till tomorrow, but I know you're close to that team. Are they in some deep trouble tomorrow night against this Chicago team?
Yeah, they're in some trouble in large part because they've got problems I just don't know how they figure out. I mean, their lack of size is a problem. Robin Lopez has been a problem. His physicality has completely changed the dynamic of this series, and Boston just doesn't have the horses to match up with him. I mean, I expect them to play Tyler Zeller a little bit more. Brad Stevens will come up with some kind of schemes, try to keep him off the glass. Maybe they start fouling Rajon Rondo more to try to slow the game down and change the dynamic. But, this Bulls team has been in total control for 8 consecutive quarters. They have dominated for 4 of the last 5. So I don't know how Boston can resolve these unless something significant changes in this series.
Yeah, Chris, rim protection is really the story of this one, right? I mean, when you look at the night they had the other night, Chicago had no fear taking the ball to the basket.
No fear whatsoever. Boston never has had a rim protector, but their perimeter defense has always been really good. I mean, if you look at who they have, outside of Isaiah Thomas, it's mostly elite. Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, Jay Crowder, even Terry Rozier can defend. They've got guys that can keep you out of the lane. They just haven't been able to do it. Jimmy Butler's been the best player on the floor in this series. Dwayne Wade's turned back the clock. Like I said, a lot has to change for Boston to get back into this series, and I'm not so sure they have the talent on the roster to do it. Plus, with Isaiah Thomas dealing with what he's dealing with, it just seems like a perfect storm of bad events for the Celtics right now.
You feel the Celtics, that they're too far behind at this point? Can they get back into the series, or is Chicago just a bad matchup for them?
Well, look, Chicago's been inconsistent. Chicago's a 41-win team, and they finished the season strong. But for most of the season, they were a train wreck. Now, they look like they figured it out. And Rajon Rondo against his former team, that's a clearly motivated player out there on the floor. But I think Boston has talent. If they can somehow neutralize the three-point shooting, which was a big factor for the Bulls in game 2, and if they can keep that edge on the glass to right around what it was in game 2, I think they've got a decent chance of getting back in. But again, everything's got to work well for them.
That series continues tomorrow. Tonight, Toronto. Is Toronto in trouble or just an eye-opener in Game 1?
Well, I think it's a tough series for them. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a monster. He is one of the best young players in the NBA, right up there with Joel Embiid as that kind of young 21-ish-year-old franchise player I would like to build a team around. So he's presented some problems. Even when they won on their home floor, that's not a great win for them necessarily. But the Bucks, they're young, they're inexperienced. I lean towards the team with veterans. I lean towards the team that's been there before. And Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan are still a far superior backcourt to anything the Bucks can put out there. So I think these games are going to be tough as the series shifts back to Milwaukee. But I think Toronto's good enough to pull it out.
Chris Mannix with us here. Washington defense last night and the backcourt too much. Washington dominates as they move on. Do you like what you're seeing from Washington to feel like this team has a run in them in this playoff tournament?
Yeah, I do. Washington has been very consistent most of the season. Wall and Beal have been terrific. Scott Brooks was the right guy to hire for that job. One thing I love about Scott Brooks is that he goes to his star players early, and he ingratiated himself with them, and he really built a trust and a bond with John Wall and Bradley Beal that's helped them get to this level this year. Markieff Morris has been good. The question with Washington is always going to be its bench. Like, what can they get out of its bench? And you've seen it various times in the first-round series against Atlanta. They haven't gotten much. So that might be fine to get through the Hawks. But when they get to a second-round series, Chicago, Boston, whoever it's going to be, that bench has to deliver. So keep an eye on the numbers there. If the bench is producing, they're a dangerous team. If they're not, still a little bit weaker.
Chris Mannix talking NBA playoffs here. Let's look at Harden and 35. Oklahoma City was in control, it seemed like, in that game. Westbrook with another triple-double. We know what he said afterwards. We didn't win the game. Is Houston just too much for Oklahoma City?
Yeah, Houston's too much. I mean, I love what Russell Westbrook has done this season. He's the MVP in my mind. For that team to win 47 games after losing Kevin Durant is remarkable. I mean, teams just don't play like that after losing a top-5 player. But Houston is they're just better. You know, they've got talent at the point guard position. They've got shooters on the outside. James Harden has done a brilliant job facilitating all season long and in this series. They're just a better team. And Oklahoma City knows if they're going to get better, they've got to add somebody on the perimeter that's going to help them offensively. They've got to continue the development of Steven Adams and Victor Oladipo. They're a long way from being a complete product. But even if they go out in 4 games, it takes nothing away from the type of season they've had. It has been a rousing success of a year in Oklahoma City.
All right, Chris, we'll finish on going back to the East, where Cleveland's up 2-0. Defense still a little bit of a problem for them. But any issues for Cleveland making it back to the finals with what the sample size you've seen in the East?
Well, yeah, I do think there are issues. That defense is terrible. You know, LeBron's saying that we're almost there. You know, he knows his team better than I do, but I don't know. I don't see it. I think defensively they're going to have problems as they progress in this tournament. Let's assume it's Toronto for a second. Toronto's going to give them a lot of problems. Toronto, Kyle Lowry, he can defend Kyrie Irving in the half court, and he can score on him on the other end. Serge Ibaka being there, that is the type of versatile defensive player that they didn't have last year in the conference finals against the Cavs. You can play him against Tristan Thompson. You can play him against Kevin Love. He presents an entire different layer of defense that the Raptors can go to. I know they're struggling right now, but don't take that to believe that the Raptors are going to be any less tough if they wind up playing Cleveland in the conference semifinals. That is going to be a war of a series that I don't think the Cavs can win if their defense is playing at this level right now.
Chris Mannix here from The Vertical as the NBA playoffs continue. And, of course, check out Chris on NBC Sports Radio, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons on NBC Sports Radio. I didn't get into Golden State, really, and Memphis either, because it seems that those are going in the direction we all thought. No surprises coming, right?
No surprises. I mean, you watch the way Golden State cruised last night without Kevin Durant. You're going to have a hard time convincing me and anybody in the NBA that beating them in 4 out of 7 is possible. They're tough. Now, San Antonio's interesting against Memphis. You watch the way Tony Parker is playing. He's the wild card. Tony Parker, if he averages 16.5 points and shoots % from 3, that's a team that can win a championship. But he's 34 years old, played 200-plus playoff games. How much does he have left in the tank in an extended postseason run? That's a question for the Spurs. If he plays well, look out for San Antonio. If he starts to fade, they go out in the second or third round.
Chris Mannix, everybody, here on the playoffs. Of course, NBA playoffs continue tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN. Check him out on NBC Sports Radio. Download and subscribe to the Mannix podcast. Take care, Chris. Enjoy the games, pal.
My pleasure, Mike.